Part 1. Every morning, he woke up with a heavy sigh, convinced life had been unfair to him. Work felt like a prison, relationships felt like burdens, and peace felt like a dream meant for others. But one quiet moment, small enough to be ignored, would slowly teach him a truth powerful enough to change his heart forever. He believed the world owed him something. Each day began with irritation before his feet even touched the floor. The alarm rang, and with it came the familiar wave of resentment. Another day of deadlines, another day of forced smiles, another day of pretending everything was fine. On his way to work, he muttered complaints under his breath. About traffic, about people who walked too slowly, about a life that never seemed to give him a break. He felt surrounded by noise, yet deeply alone. Even at home, conversations felt shallow. He saw relationships not as comfort, but as responsibility. To him, everything demanded something, and nothing gave enough back. At work, he did his job well, but without joy. He noticed how easily frustration took over his thoughts. A small mistake by a colleague felt personal. A delayed email felt disrespectful. He often asked himself why life felt so heavy for him while others seemed to smile so easily. They must be pretending, he told himself. In quiet moments when no one was around, he admitted something he never said out loud. He was tired of being tired. Yet instead of resting his heart, he fed it with more complaints. One evening, after another long day, he stopped by a small park near his apartment. He didn't plan to sit, but his legs felt weak, as if they carried the weight of his thoughts. Nearby, an elderly man sat on a bench, feeding birds with slow, careful movements. Their eyes met briefly, and the old man smiled, not out of politeness, but with a calm warmth that felt rare. The man watched him for a moment and said softly, "It's a beautiful evening, isn't it?" He almost laughed at the comment. Beautiful. He looked around and saw nothing special, just trees, birds, and fading daylight. He shrugged and replied, "I guess." The old man didn't argue. He simply nodded and continued feeding the birds. There was something peaceful in his silence, something unhurried. For reasons he couldn't explain, that calm presence stayed with him long after he walked away. That night, as he lay in bed, his usual complaints felt oddly empty. The world hadn't changed, but something inside him had been gently disturbed, like a door left slightly open. Part 2. The next few days passed as usual, yet not quite the same. He still complained, still felt irritated, but the old man's calm voice returned to him at unexpected moments. "It's a beautiful evening," the man had said, without any need to prove it. One morning, as he waited for his coffee to brew, he noticed the sound of rain tapping softly against the window. Normally, rain annoyed him. It slowed traffic and dampened plans. This time he paused. The sound was steady, almost soothing. He caught himself standing there longer than needed, simply listening. At work, a colleague thanked him for helping with a task he barely remembered doing. The gratitude felt small but genuine. He nodded, unsure how to respond, yet something warm settled briefly in his chest. Confused him. He wasn't used to noticing such moments. His mind had always raced ahead to what was missing, never what was present. One evening he returned to the park, half hoping to see the old man again. The bench was empty, birds scattered across the grass. He sat there alone, watching the sky shift colors. For the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to breathe without judgment. He realized how rarely he acknowledged simple things. His health, a steady job, a place to sit in peace. These had always been background noise, overshadowed by desire and dissatisfaction. He began experimenting quietly. Each night before sleep, he forced himself to name one thing that hadn't gone wrong that day. First it felt silly. "The bus was on time," he muttered once, rolling his eyes. Another night. Dinner was warm. But repetition softened the resistance. Slowly, those small acknowledgments grew into moments of genuine appreciation. Problems didn't disappear. Bills still arrived. Work remained demanding. Some relationships were still strained. But something had changed in how he carried those problems. They no longer felt like proof that life was against him. Instead, they felt like challenges resting on a foundation that was slowly becoming steadier. One morning, he woke up and realized he hadn't sighed. The thought surprised him more than it should have. He sat on the edge of his bed, sunlight slipping through the curtains, and whispered a simple "thank you," unsure who it was meant for. Perhaps it didn't matter. What mattered was how light his chest felt in that moment. Part 3. Weeks passed, and gratitude quietly became part of his routine. Not forced, not dramatic, just present. He noticed how his tone changed when he spoke to others. He listened more, interrupted less. When frustrations arose, he still felt them, but they no longer controlled his entire day. One afternoon, he ran into the elderly man again at the park. The man smiled as if they had been meeting every day. "You look lighter," he said simply. He laughed, a genuine sound that surprised even him. "I think I might be," he replied. They sat together in comfortable silence. After a while he asked, "How do you stay so calm?" The old man looked at the trees, then back at him. "I don't focus on what life hasn't given me," he said. "I take care of what it already has." Those words stayed with him. He realized how much energy he had wasted counting what was missing instead of honoring what remained. Gratitude hadn't made his life perfect. It had made it honest. Honest about pain but also about blessings. He began thanking people out loud. The barista, his co-workers, even family members he once saw only as obligations. The responses were simple yet powerful. Smiles lingered. Conversations softened. One evening, after a difficult day, he sat alone at home. Normally, this would have been the moment his complaints returned full force. Instead, he acknowledged his exhaustion, poured himself a glass of water, and rested. He didn't need to fight the day anymore. He accepted it. That acceptance brought a quiet peace he had never known. He understood now that peace was not the absence of problems, but the presence of gratitude. His heart, once crowded with complaints, now had space. Space to breathe, to heal, to feel. Life hadn't changed its pace, but he had changed how he walked alongside it. Part 4. Over time, others noticed the difference. Friends commented on his calm. Family members felt safer sharing their worries with him. He became someone who listened not to fix but to understand. When setbacks came, and they still did, he reminded himself of all that remained steady. His breath, his strength, the quiet moments that waited patiently between chaos. One night, standing by his window, he watched the city lights glow. Once he would have seen only loneliness in that view. Now he felt connection. Each light represented a life, carrying its own struggles, its own blessings. He whispered another thank you, not out of habit but out of truth. He finally understood that a thankful heart doesn't change the world. It changes how the world feels. And in that change, peace finds its way home. If this story touched your heart, take a quiet moment today to notice something small you're grateful for. Peace doesn't come from having more. It comes from appreciating what's already here. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more gentle tales that heal the heart. Until next time, keep your heart thankful. And let peace find you.